DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, respectfully, should not be ranked 10 positions apart in Dynasty football right now. That makes no sense whatsoever. DJ Moore had an incredible year last year. He's got a contract. This is not Keenan Allen. This is DJ Moore, 27-year-old in his absolute prime. DJ Moore, probably going to lead this team in total fantasy points in 2024. DJ Moore. For most of us, our 2024 rookie drafts are in the books, and now we're looking at our dynasty teams, trying to assess and ask, what do I do with these 2025 rookie picks? You know, here on this channel, we're talking about the running backs, the lack of quarterbacks, the wide receivers that we like, but ultimately, you might be looking at your team and thinking, maybe I'm one piece away from really going out and competing for a championship. Well, in today's video, I'm going to tell you what you can spend your 2025 rookie dynasty picks on and at every position. So let's start if you have a projected early 2025 first. Right now, at the time of recording this video, I've done a lot of research on the 2025 class, and it looks like a defensive heavy class. You know, there's good running backs for sure. There's a couple wide receivers we really like. I think it's deeper than people realize, but the tight ends don't stand out to me. And more importantly, the quarterbacks don't stand out to me in 2025. There's no clear number one or number two prospect at the quarterback position, in my opinion. And if you think about the previous years, that's not been the case. In 2024, this year, we knew the year before, Caleb Williams, Drake May, incredible prospects. In 2023, we already knew the names the year before of Bryce Young, CJ Stroud were coming into the league. The year before that, 2022, not a lot of hype, but Sam Howell was a name. And then in 2021, Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. Again, we already knew about those names the year before they declared for the NFL draft. So this class, at this point, and it could change, feels a lot like 2022 for quarterbacks. And so far, 2022 has been tragic, right? You had Kenny Pickett in round one. That didn't work out. Then a bunch of third-round quarterbacks who failed. The only guy is Brock Purdy, the seventh-round pick, who actually worked out in the NFL, at least as of right now. So all that being said, if you need a quarterback, and these values are specifically for super flex leagues, if you need a quarterback, do not be afraid to use your 25 draft capital to go out and trade for a quarterback already in the NFL. I don't think you're going to regret it. Now, of course, a Jaden Daniels, a Joe Burrow could come out of nowhere, but I think the guys I'm going to tell you to trade your picks for are very safe. So at the quarterback spot, how about Trevor Lawrence, right? Just got the big time contract from Jacksonville, hasn't put like a superstar fantasy season together just yet, but we know there's commitment from the franchise. We know that they're building around him because they keep signing offensive linemen, and they obviously just signed Gabe Davis and drafted Brian Thomas Jr., who we all, for the most part, really, really love. So I think Trevor Lawrence is a fantastic option. How about Brock Purdy, Glock Purdy? We just talked about him. What's not to love about Brock Purdy? He's in an offense connected to Shanahan. He's connected to Debo, Kittle, maybe Ayuk, CMC, definitely for the future. Last year, he was top 6 in fantasy points per game, and you can, in a lot of leagues, get Brock Purdy for an early first in Superflex. That's a no-brainer, in my opinion. Like, he just led them to the Super Bowl. Don't be worried about Brock Purdy. He's going to get a contract. Another option is Dak Prescott for any competing teams out there. Yes, he's going to be 31 years old soon, but that's not that old for the quarterback position. We know these guys can play into like the 36 to 38 range at minimum. And he's, just last year had a top 5 points per game season, connected to CeeDee Lamb. I think they're going to sign him long-term. A lot of people are disagreeing with me on that. I just don't think there's another option for the Cowboys that's obvious out there. Because if you let Dak go, you got to have someone to replace him, right? Next option is Drake May. You can pretty easily, for the most part, according to 15 million data points from KTC, you can trade for Drake May if you send an early projected first. So I think it's worth doing. He's a very talented player. He might not go crazy this year, but he would unquestionably be the number one overall pick in next year's draft, or like the projected number one overall pick if he was in 2025. So you can definitely go out and spend some capital on Drake May. So for the running back position, I don't think you should send an early first for a running back in Dynasty football right now. I think if you have a projected early first and running backs where you need to improve, just hold that bad boy, because think about this. How much did you love, like me, Jonathan Brooks and Trey Benson this year? I want you to imagine a class in 2025 that has potentially 6 to 8 of those type of talented running backs in a class. That's what 2025 at the moment looks like it could bring us. If you want to dive deep into the 2025 class, I have a video. It looks like this. You can check it out on our channel. All right, let's move on to wide receivers, though. Outside of one name that I'm going to bring you, every single one of these wide receivers was drafted in round 1 with really good draft capital, but all of them, I love their situations. You know, I project them to be really good assets into the future. They're all young. They're all guys that you can build around for the long run. So the first one is Drake London. Now, clearly, this is kind of like a make or break year for Drake London's fantasy value. If he doesn't really go out and have a good year with Kirk Cousins, we will potentially reevaluate. But top 10 draft capital, finally the entire offense changed. Arthur Smith is out. There's a lot of signs that Drake London could break out, and you could be ahead of like what if London's actually worth 2 early firsts this time next year? Another option is Jalen Waddle. You know, with some of these names, you might need to add a little something to get it done. But Waddle just got the long-term contract in Miami with the McDaniels offense. So explosive, so good per touch. Definitely someone I'd be willing to build around instead of like, what could this pick be? How about Chris Olave? Again, all these guys are young players. Chris Olave hasn't really had a top 12 season, but the offensive coordinator just changed. I like projecting his future in New Orleans. How about Brandon Ayuk? We don't know where Ayuk's going to play in 2025, so we don't know where he'll be by the time this pick is used. However, we know how talented he is on a per target, you know, per reception basis, one of the best receivers in the NFL. Nico Collins last year with CJ Stroud, first year with CJ, averaged over 17 points per game and then gets the long-term contract with the team. Still just 25 years old. You can build around him. You're not going to regret trading for Nico Collins. And how about Rome Odunze? Think about it. If Rome Odunze was in next year's class, where would we rank him? I mean, at the moment, between Luther Burden and Tet McMillan, Rome Odunze might be the most complete prospect of those two names. Now, there's a lot that could change, a lot that could happen in a year, but if you're looking for a wide receiver in next year's class and you want Luther or Tet or whatever, whoever your sauce is, whatever you're liking, Rome Odunze might be the 101 in 2025. Like, that could have been a total possibility. Top 10 draft pick, connected to Caleb Williams long term. And then maybe his value rises if Keenan Allen moves on from this team in the offseason. Okay, let's talk about the tight end position. Now, I would only send an early first if I'm in a tight end premium league. If you're not in a tight end premium league, probably just hold on to your pick. You can easily trade for a tight end at any point in most leagues. But if you're in a tight end premium, I think Trey McBride is definitely worth considering. How big is a premium, right? You know, are you sending potentially the 101? Then maybe you keep that pick if you really think it is. But can it be the 101 to the 106 and you have a full point premium? I think this is when McBride and Dalton Kincaid make a lot of sense, and you might be able to get something in return as well in those deals. All right. Okay, so maybe you have a projected mid-round pick in 2025. Well, again, Superflex format, let's look at some quarterbacks that will be options. How about Tua Tags? A little bit risky with Tua, but the reality is, I think he's going to get signed long-term. If you don't feel comfortable because you're not sure if he'll get signed or not, I totally get it. You can pass on him. However, I mean, think about Tua and CJ Stroud's situation. They're not all that different. Like, I don't want to upset people, but CJ Stroud has Nico Collins, Tank Dell long-term, maybe Diggs. Okay. Tua Tags has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle long-term, as well as Devon Achane out of the backfield. So, and neither of these guys are rushing for touchdowns. So I definitely get where people are coming from, but the minute Tua signs a long-term deal, it's going to be a lot more difficult to go out and trade for him. Okay. Quarterback 16 right now. If he signs a long-term deal, you won't be able to send a mid-first next year to go out and get into a Tagovailoa. Another option is Jared Goff. Just signed a long-term deal, surrounded in a fantastic option, was a really good top 12 fringe option in 2024. The offense should only get better. And how about J.J. McCarthy? No expectations for him this year. We don't know if he's going to start or not, but regardless, he would be one of the better prospects in 2025 had he stayed in college. And we already know his landing spot. We already know Kevin O'Connell is going to be, building him up week by week in the regular season and he's going to be able to sit behind Sam Darnold with no pressure. You can bet on JJ here. At least I am willing to take that risk. Again, if you need a running back, I would suggest to hold off and keep your picks. All right, how about the wide receiver position? DK Metcalf, fantastic option. Ryan Grubb joins from Washington to Seattle to be the offensive coordinator. They keep publicly stating that they're going to throw the ball a lot more than they did previously. And I think Geno Smith could have a revival. Same with DK and another name we'll talk about here. DJ Moore. DJ Moore is the wide receiver 24 right now. Insane. Like, DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, respectfully, should not be ranked 10 positions apart in Dynasty football right now. That makes no sense whatsoever. DJ Moore had an incredible year last year. He's got a contract. This is not Keenan Allen. This is DJ Moore, 27-year-old in his absolute prime. DJ Moore, probably going to lead this team in total fantasy points in 2024. DJ Moore. So if you can trade a first for him next year and it's mid and you don't even know what that could turn into and you know you're going to get that production this year from DJ, then I'm totally comfortable doing that. How about Tank Dell? So if, Nico Collins is too expensive, Tank Dell is an option. We know when he was healthy and when he became a starter, he was one of the best starts in fantasy football. And you betting on Tank Dell is betting that Diggs won't be there long term. If you feel that way, then definitely consider that. How about Michael Pittman? I'm not the biggest fan, of course, of the Colts passing offense. And it's not even that I'm not a fan. It's just like I can't project it. I think a lot of us are like pretending we know exactly how it's going to work out because of previous regimes that Shane Steichen's been a part of. I don't want to get into it, but regardless, I know Michael Pittman's the dude there. I know he's going to be the guy in Indianapolis. And even if I don't believe in him long term, can I trade for him now and trade him in season for an alternate name that I would like to pivot to? If you can, I'm totally open to doing it. All right, how about George Pickens? Now, if you're not a George Pickens guy, you're going to laugh at me. If you're a George Pickens guy like me, you're like, absolutely, let's go ahead and send a 25 first for him. I just think I'm beating the breakout by buying George Pickens at this price. I've talked about this before, but last year, if we want to talk about how good Ayuk was on a per reception basis, George Pickens was better. On a per reception basis, go look at it. Yards per reception, like yak per reception. He had more yak per reception than guys like Waddle. I remember Puka Nacua, right? And yards per reception, he had a higher yards per reception than Brandon Ayuk, but much worse quarterback play. Now the quarterback play, in my opinion, improves. And Deontay Johnson, who had 24% of the target share, is gone. So I think Pickens is a fantastic buy. I'm not afraid to spend a first on him, and I know a lot of people are. Natural talent. Guess what? Go look at how many Steeler wide receivers have broken out in year 3 or onwards. It is not uncommon. He is following the Steeler breakout wide receiver pathway as we are speaking. So I'm willing to bet on him. Maybe you're not. That's okay. How about JSN? Just like I said with DK Metcalf, everything also applies here with JSN. I think a breakout could be coming. I do project him to take over the role of wide receiver 2. And I still think he's a pivotal part of them moving forward. And everything from Coach Speak Index agrees with that thought process. A couple other options. Brian Thomas Jr., great prospect. We know he got drafted in the first round, and he's in a situation where he's needed. How about Ladd McConkey? Not necessarily a first-round pick, but in a situation where he could easily improve value. If Ladd McConkey actually is the number 1 wide receiver in Los Angeles for Justin Herbert, he will be much higher than wide receiver 27 by the end of the year. That I think we can all agree on. It's just people aren't sure if he will come out of the gates as the guy. So if you want to bet on him in that sense, maybe you get a little more in return for that trade. How about Xavier Worthy? I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Xavier Worthy guy. I might not be willing to send this pick, but I want to let you know that you can, according to KTC's data points. All right, moving on to the tight end position. Kyle Pitts, just like Drake London, top 10 draft capital. Finally, everything's changed for that offense. And don't forget, Kyle Pitts was injured pretty much the entire 2023 season. Or is that 2024? Last year, okay? So he's finally healthy and ready to go. And how about Brock Bowers? I can't point to a single tight end prospect in 2024 that I'm like overly excited about. There's no like Michael Mayer, Sam Laporta at this moment or a Brock Bowers. So if you're in a tight end premium and you can get Brock for a mid first, I think it's worth looking at for sure in a tight end premium. There are now 2 ways to get your dynasty team reviewed by Badaki and myself on a live stream. The first option is by becoming a yearly member. You'll unlock all the premium tools on the site and a complimentary review. The other option, which we just introduced recently and you guys are loving, is the a la carte store. Both links are in the description. So if you want us to give you, a personalized, tailored advice just to your league, your settings, moves that you should make, then consider supporting the show by checking out the links in the pinned comment. Let's get back to the video. Finishing off the video with late 2025 first round picks. This is, if you have this pick and you own it, you're probably someone who made the playoffs last year. You may have won your championship and you're thinking, I can extract more out of this pick to help me this year than what this pick will give me in 2025, right? So here are some names that would make a lot of sense for you. In a Superflex league, Bryce Young, right? Bryce Young has a new head coach, Canales, who helped Geno Smith revive his career, Baker Mayfield revive his career, and he's put all of his pieces offensively into place, improves the offensive line through free agency, drafts Xavier Legette, and obviously Jonathan Brooks as well. So we know how talented Bryce Young is. If they can keep him upright and they added Deontay Johnson, anything is possible. How about Deshaun Watson? I know there's bad juju around Deshaun Watson, but there is literally no way for the Browns to get there's no scenario they get out of this contract. So you can bet on maybe Deshaun Watson regaining his form, and maybe you could get even more. Maybe you can send a late first and get Deshaun Watson and a third, or a James Conner or something like that, right? How about Bo Nix? I know a lot of people hate Bo Nix, but are we certain that any quarterback in 2025 is going to be drafted higher than what Bo Nix was in 2024? I like Shedeur Sanders. I like Carson Beck. I can't sit here and tell you that I know they're going to be first round picks. So much can go wrong for those guys, even though I think they're very, very talented. So you get a guy who was drafted in the first round, connected to Sean Payton, and right now that offense isn't fun to think about. So you can buy him pretty affordably. Like, he's going 7th, 8th, and 9th round in startups, but obviously this is not the end for Sean Payton. He has a long line of things that he has planned moving forward, and Bo Nix is a huge part of that for him. A couple other options is Baker Mayfield if you just want a quality quarterback too, and Will Levis if you want to take a shot on him and bet on his upside. Okay, with the running back position again, I would personally advise you to hold. And I just wanted to go a little bit further now that we're at the late first territory. If you have a late first, it probably means that you're really competing. What I would advise is, instead of sending that late first for a running back, how about instead you go and send one of your second round picks or a value that's worth a second or a third round pick. And here's a couple names that I just wanted to quickly highlight for you if you're wanting to do that, okay? For example, in some leagues, maybe you can get Derrick Henry for an early projected second. Can you get Joe Mixon, who's 27 years old? I mean, how about Alvin Kamara for a second round pick, who's 28 years old at this point? What about David Montgomery? We can look at maybe betting on a name like Raheem Mostert for a third round pick. If you can go out and grab Jalen Wright and Raheem Mostert and spend a second round pick in total, that's a huge win for you. How about Gus Edwards for a third round pick? I think that's the route I would probably go if I need running back, rather than spending a late first, because next year's class is so stacked at the position. You might have another Jonathan Brooks talent available in the late first. Okay. All right. How about wide receiver with a late first round pick? 4 names. All great options. Jordan Addison, we saw what he did in his rookie season. Keep in mind, I know he's dealing with all these legal issues, but TJ Hawkinson won't be on the field to begin the season. Could we see Jordan Addison with a high target share to begin? Maybe you can sell him high if you don't want to build around him long term. How about Deebo Samuel, who is getting up there in age, but if you need to flex and you're competing, he definitely has like top 12 ceiling this year. How about Rashee Rice? I love betting on Rashee Rice here. You're kind of betting that, okay, he'll get suspended maybe 4 to 5 games, but ultimately I think he is the number 1 receiver in Kansas City. If that's how you feel, this will be a huge discount on Rashee Rice. And maybe you're buying him for the future. Think about it. Hollywood Brown's probably not going to sign here long term. It's going to be Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy going forward. How about Jaden Reed? We saw the finish to the end of the season, Jaden Reed's a weird name because he hasn't really like improved his value at all in the offseason, even though he was one of the better receivers in last year's class. And to finish off, a couple tight ends that I think are being underlooked. Mark Andrews is one of those names. Mark Andrews has the tight end one upside. He still does. I know we're all excited about Zay Flowers, but when Zay Flowers was on the field, Mark Andrews was there, it was Mark Andrews' show. It still was the Mark Andrews show. So I think in competing teams, he's a fantastic buy right now. And the other name is TJ Hawkinson. This is the perfect buy if you're in a tight end premium league and you're in a productive struggle or you're just a one-year punt. Perfect buy in the right system, still super young, will be 28 this time next year, attack to a really good offense. So he's a fantastic option as well. But those are kind of the player values that you're looking for right now. This is from a super flex perspective. Let me know what you guys think. You know, if you would agree or disagree with some of the players I'm suggesting to trade for, what risk you might think there is associated with doing so. Like the video, subscribe. I appreciate y'all big time, and thanks for watching. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.